You're listening to Selling the Dream. This isn't an interview, and we're not journalists, but each week we'll ask our guests to open up and share their secrets to business success. Let's have a conversation and have some fun.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Selling the Dream. I'm Ken Jordan with Princeton Mortgage, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Joe Iredell with Sure Sites Media, among other interests and professions. This is a podcast for salespeople, entrepreneurs, leaders, and today we are joined by all three in one. But before we get to our guest, I want to just chop it up a bit with Joe Iredell. What's new with you, man?
Same old, man. Just trying to keep forging ahead, brother. We got a lot of good stuff going on. I'm in the process of opening a rather large jiu-jitsu academy. So that whole process has been pretty interesting, going through the whole construction phase and TIs and learning a whole new just world that I was not very familiar with until the past year. So that's been exciting, and that'll be really cool. We'll be one of the premier training facilities out here on the West Coast.
Well, enough of a plug there. What do you think?
Yeah. You got to come out and train, bro.
Yeah.
Get out here.
I told you, man, rolling around on the floor, the whole jiu-jitsu thing just looks weird, dude. I'm just going to be honest with you. It looks weird.
It's like learning how to swim, dude. You never know when you're going to need it, but you will.
Anyway, I want to introduce our guest today. I've known Joe McAnulty for a long time. Gosh, I want to say going on 20 years. And
Easily,
I've kind of had a second row seat to all of his accomplishments via one of my dearest friends, his mom, Maria, who is a real estate agent and one of my very first referral partners in the mortgage industry. And I've got to see Joe grow. And when we ran into each other recently and caught up, I knew that it would be awesome to have him on. So I want to introduce Joe McAnulty from Your Elevator Solutions. Joe, how are you, brother?
Good. How are you? Glad to be here. It's not breaks up my normal day of dealing with elevator issues. So I'm glad to chat and hang out with you guys for a bit.
Joe's dying, dude. Just do it, man.
I'm not gonna say it, but I'll pose it this way. How many times people ask you if there's a lot of ups and downs in your business?
It is, if I don't hear it once a week, then I'm probably not interacting with enough people that week, or maybe I'm even on vacation. However, we were on vacation a couple of weeks ago in the Outer Banks, and the house we were staying at had an elevator. So at least 2 or 3 relatives, our in-laws of mine, asked me that question in some form or fashion. So it's unfortunately it's something we have to deal with all the time.
See, I said that to KJ. He thought, he acted like that's the first time I ever heard the joke. Like I came up with like comedy gold on the spot. I'm like, this guy's probably heard this like multiple times a day. There's no chance I'm saying that.
Like
we got to get you mortgaging we got to get you mortgaging some more commercial real estate, so that way you can hear that joke a little more.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines was our buddy Scott Bailey was in the septic business, and what did he always say, Joe? He's your number one man in the number 2 business.
That's right.
I love it.
And I'm sure that is probably pervasive in his industry, right? Everybody's got something. Well, Joe, thanks for joining us today, man. I was hoping we could kind of just kick it off with a little bit of background on your professionally, on where you've been and your rise.
Let's start
where you are today.
Let's start with 2 truths and a lie, KJ.
Oh, thank you. See, I do it every time, Joe Mac. I always forget. So before we get too far into it, let's get into 2 truths and a lie. I'm going to ask you for 3 facts. 2 of them are true. 1 of them's false. And by the end, Joe Iredell is going to try and figure out which one is the lie. So you ready to go?
I'm ready. I've been waiting for this.
All right, I'm going to write these down. So go ahead. What's fact number 1?
So fact number 1 is I used to be a firefighter for about 8 or 9 years. So that was interesting. And then the second one is my wife and I actually met through racing cars. So there's that. And then the third one is actually got 2 hole-in-ones on one single 18. So playing 18 at a course, and was able to get 2 hole-in-ones on two different par threes.
Interesting. I think I
Wow.
know the answer to this, so when we get there, I'm gonna let Joe absolutely run with it. But
Fair enough.
I can't wait to talk about that. Anyway, so give us a little bit of backstory. Where have you been? And kind of your road to being an entrepreneur and opening up a very successful elevator services company.
Yeah, so I started in elevators right out of high school, actually. So I was working at a small company. I graduated from high school. I didn't go to college, and I was working at a small company that did some concrete repair type work on high-rise buildings, mid-rise buildings, and had the opportunity to join the elevator side, and had a long discussion with my dad about it because I really liked the people I was working with. Didn't like what I was doing, but like the crew that we were working with. We were still very good friends, and one of them has followed me at 2 or 3 different companies and joined the elevator trade. But I went to be an apprentice. Started working in Washington D.C. actually. Started on the Supreme Courthouse, doing new installs on some elevators and some elevator renovation projects. And then bounced around inside of DC. Did mostly government buildings, a lot of museums and stuff that you see, which was awesome. The last building I worked on in DC was the old patent office building in the Supreme Courthouse, or Prettyman Supreme Courthouse. And then I sort of moved back home to. I was just staying there out of town during the week, and then would drive back and forth on the weekends. And ended up getting a job up closer in the Philadelphia area, and stayed in the Philadelphia area until about 2017. But in that journey, I got to really be involved in a lot of like boards and programs outside of the actual company. The company I was at actually gave me kind of free way to just go join. So I joined, sat on a board for NASA, which is the Elevator Inspectors Certification Organization. So I joined that. Actually, still sit on the board for that as well. Actually, this year I'm the secretary, or no, I'm the treasurer, which is cool. I'm the executive committee for that. So they have about, I think there's 3,000 inspectors in the U.S., and they're in charge of making sure that they have the right certification. And then, so got to join in that while I was this was while I was on the service side of the industry. Got to join National Association of Elevator Contractors on the safety committee, as well as on the one of the builders associations. I got to actually campaign on the Hill for a couple of years, making sure that certifications for elevator service guys and inspectors was part of like bids inside of government contracts and stuff. So I actually recently ran into a colleague down the shore who I hadn't seen in about 10 years. And he was showing my wife pictures of us in the Capitol building talking with congressmen and stuff. And she's like, I didn't even know you did that. And I'm like, I forgot that I did that, to be honest with you. But it was really cool because I got to build those relationships. So the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, I transitioned over the professional services side in elevators. And basically we do consulting and design work and kind of oversee businesses or big portfolios or elevators on the professional services side, meaning we do inspections for state compliance inspections, as well as doing being like the advocate for the client. So making sure that they're getting what they're paying for in all different ways. So if they're putting a new elevator in or modernizing an old elevator, like renewing it, making sure that we put a specification together, design it, and say, this is what the elevator needs to be, put it out to bid. And then throughout the process, make sure that the drawings, submittals, packages, all that stuff are in place. And then after that's agreed upon, then we make sure that that's what's put in. And we come in different stages depending on what it is. And then late in like 2018, early 2019, got to help develop a program, basically asset management of elevators, which is reviewing every elevator proposal, invoice, every basically problem that's coming through on the elevator. We were reviewing these problems for the elevator owners on bigger portfolios, like owners that maybe own like 100 hotels or things along those lines. And we were able to save them, like it was basically a 1,200% return on investment with what they were paying us versus what we were getting them in savings for misbilled items or proposals that things were included in their contract. I actually usually have a hard time telling a client that I'll save them that much money because it's a number that people just don't believe until they say it. And I have a one long-term client who's been my client since the beginning of that program, and he's like, don't even say it. Don't even say it to my boss. Like I'm like, well, what do you want me to say? Like he's like, just give them the numbers and let them figure out the math, because 1,200% ROI is just crazy. So anyway, so we moved into that. So I was running a company. It was called Liberty Elevator Experts, and had a great time there. Had so many awesome colleagues.
When you say you're running
And
a company, you were CEO?
I was
or
the general manager. Yeah, so I don't know if title was really a thing. We thought we were a small business operating on a national scale, and I was the COO, I think was my actual title. But we kind of went through some transitions on different sides of the house, and so oversaw a finance team for a little bit, and oversaw the sales team and all that stuff. So that everything kind of flowed through. It was a hands-on owner operator who had a great relationship with, and still do. And so we were doing just everything, right? I mean, at one point in time, we needed to move an office, so we framed the office and drywalled it and painted it ourselves. So it was essentially doing everything there. And it was really fun. We went through a merger in 2022, maybe 2023, and merged with two other companies. One was a Canadian-based company doing the same services, and one was a company based out of St. Louis, and basically went from having like 65 employees to 350 employees. So it was a really neat merger, three-way merger. It's a great time to go through a merger. We did M&A before that on the other side, but and then after that, so I transitioned to overseeing just the consulting division. So we do inspections and inspection side of the house, and then consulting side of the house. So I was the COO for consulting there. They were bought by a private equity group in 2025 or 2024, somewhere around there. And I transitioned over into the chief sales officer, and I'll tell you, I'm the worst salesperson you'll ever meet. I'm more of a, I'll show you how we can do this and how it works, and then you buy it from me after type of person. But so sale, I don't know if CSO was the right term for what I was doing, but it fit for a little bit, and then just made the decision to go out on my own. I had some things going on with services that kind of fell between what a service contractor does and what a general contractor does during repairs or during modernizations or new construction projects, meaning like things that need to get tied into each other, things people need to understand how the two sides of the house work, like meaning the fire alarm systems or the electrical systems, and basically being that mediator between the two, outside of like what a consultant does, and being a little more hands-on, and had some guys that wanted to do some work. So started a business, and it was mostly work that was not what I was doing, or it was work that I was not doing at the company that I was with. And then just made the change, and then people just started calling after I wanted to figure out what I was doing. Got to help a couple like government companies that did a lot of government contracts get a lot of work done, and help them bid contracts and advise them on how to be involved in things. And then most of those relationships were all from the boards that I sit on and things along those lines. And then a couple, and then now I'm just doing whatever kind of comes my way, which is consulting, design, and we do, like I said, we help people out getting projects done where somebody falls between the cracks, or it doesn't necessarily fall in the mix of an elevator contractor or a general contractor, and just helping them get those things done.
How many people do you lead right now? I mean, do you still have like teams, or is it really just you, or how's your company structured?
Yeah, so right now, it's just me with an employee just started, and then I use a bunch of subcontractors, 1099 type of guys, and they do all sorts of the great thing about the network that it kind of created throughout the past maybe 15, 20 years is like there's a lot of guys that don't want to work for a company, or they own their own company and they're trying to grow it. So just been helping them out. It's funny because there's not a ton of consulting, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like you won't see consultants like ever like fighting with each other, or this kind of side of the trade. Like everybody's just like, oh yeah, I used to work with him, he's great. And like I'll just sub stuff out to a small consulting company if that's the consulting work that needs to get done in a certain area, or do it myself, or whatever that might be. So it was really cool to just, make that transition and have all those people that have been, we've worked together over the years, and they're trying to grow their thing. I'm trying to grow my thing. And the cool part about like it all is really like all these favors that I did for people over the years have like kind of come back around. People recommending me to clients and things along those lines. Like most of my clients are all national portfolios that are, huge, 100+ building portfolios and all over the place. And nobody's based anywhere uh, singular. It's I barely have any clients in Philadelphia in a comparison. Like I have clients in Philadelphia, but because everything's all over the country, that's just the way it's based. So it's pretty neat.
So how small of a, like, it seems like it's such a niche industry, right? Like, is it,
It is.
it and it's, I'm assuming
Um,
very highly regulated and niche. So you're,
Yeah, so on the inspection side, it's like very regulated, right? And I don't do a ton of inspection work, but it was pretty neat. That side is cool because I know a lot of people that sit at the state level where they're the chief of the elevator division and stuff. So that all those items are, but on the consulting side, it's not really regulated. It's more of you're the one making sure that the elevator company and the building are following the regulations. So you're really just
So
like this
who's your
professional
customer,
person.
Joe? Who's your customer
Yeah. So big retail chains, but basically typically the people that own the property or
that are
manage the
looking to
property.
install the elevator? You kind of represent them with the manufacturers and the
Right.
installation. Gotcha.
Yes. And then if they already have a portfolio, then we, manage that as well, which is pretty neat. So it's all, I mean, anybody can be it, all the way down, we help out like small churches and stuff as they kind of go through the process to make sure that they're going to get something, complete, all the way up to, the biggest retail names that you could think of, like food chain, food
Yeah.
stores, the boxes that usually come to your house, every day, probably that your wife orders. I won't mention their name, but I know my wife. I was like, we're just paying ourselves here. That's back and forth here, but those types of people that have buildings all over the place and they're just trying to centralize and
Yeah.
figure out how to manage it. It's a really disrupted industry because of like acquisitions and things on the contractor side. So somebody just needs to be there to like make sure that elevator owners or managers have the visibility into their portfolio
The
to kind of
representation.
make sure
so
things are going. Yeah.
the companies that make the elevators, there's not, I can't imagine that there's too many of, like, people don't
Like
go out.
Otis is the only one I know.
There you go.
Yeah, like,
I
I'm
like it.
gonna start an
Yeah,
elevator
that's
company
truthful.
tomorrow. Like, the barrier of entry seems like it's like daunting to start an elevator company,
It
right?
is. There's not a lot. I mean, I can tell you that I'll say that in the States, a majority of them sit like you can fit them all into a conference or like a conference center and a convention floor. So there's like 5 or 6 major manufacturers that produce and operate all over the country or all over the world. And then there's probably a dozen more inside the US, but most of them make like one component. So you would buy one component, like the electronics from somebody, you would buy the steel from somebody else, you'd buy the hydraulic system or the electric system from somebody else, depending on like what type of
Who do
elevator
you
it is.
buy your like? Who do you lease your music from? Like, is that like the elevator? Like, is that a
That's
vendor
a,
or?
That's
that was a
music.
bad joke. That was a terrible joke. Yeah,
All
no,
right,
you should start that business though.
that's right. I'd say
Music. It's called
I lease
music, dude.
elevator music to elevator manufacturers.
There
Win.
you go.
That's awesome. I like it.
Question. So did you ever? That's why I had this old story that I was told once, and you being in the industry, tell me if this legend holds true. Is that a lot of people were very reluctant to trust elevators back when they were kind of buildings were getting to 5 floors, 6 floors, 10 floors, and at a World's Fair, Otis cut the elevator cable to test and show how the braking system worked while standing in and or on an elevator platform. Is any of that true?
It's actually true, and it's a funny story. So one of the programs you can choose to go into, which is one I did, which is Certified Elevator Technician program through NAC. is one of the first questions in the first book was, the history, and that was it. Then it was true or false. Did Otis invent the elevator? So if I asked you that question, most people would say yes, because of the World's Fair story. He actually invented the governor, which is what you're talking about now. I mean, it had a specific name at the time, but what it does is essentially it's a centrifugal force, either on like basically as it spins faster, the weights go out faster, and it eventually hits a lock and pulls up on a brake on the elevator. So it's a mechanical force. There's all sorts of other brakes that will grab the ropes and things along those lines, but somebody needed to have something on the actual elevator itself to make sure that it would stop. And that's what he was demonstrating, that you can cut the cables and it could stop. So when people say, the elevator dropped or plummeted to the bottom, I mean, a lot of things would need to go wrong. I'm not saying it can't happen or it hasn't happened, but it's typically mostly somebody maliciously or unknowledged doing, the actual act. The elevator itself, if everything's maintained correctly, could never, or would
You
never
don't
do
hear
that.
about it. I mean, it's one of those, like, you see it in movies, right? But like, when does it act? I mean, people get stuck in elevators all the time, right? But not
Yeah.
the plummet,
Yeah. And usually it's getting stuck because, two reasons. It's either not maintained, or one of the safeties is just being sensitive. So a lot of times, one of the things they say when you get stuck in an elevator is just stay there until somebody comes to get you out. Don't try and get out or break something to get out, because you're going to put yourself in more danger.
Yeah.
Obviously there's, circumstances that might change your opinion if you're in there, but that's typically, what happens. So it is different, it's a different, experience from knowing the things versus like seeing movies and you're like, that's not right. My wife's
Well,
like, okay,
do you
shut
get
up, Joe.
along with escalator guys, or is that like not a thing?
No, that's actually part of the trade, right? It's the same trade, same guys. Escalator guys are definitely confident in their abilities because they are rare. A good escalator guy is, it's hard because, I think it's
picture the Ron
one of the
Burgundy situation with the escalator, but I guess it's not the way it is.
Good. Yeah, no, it's not. It's actually, I shouldn't say that. It probably in New York City. And some of you guys are probably going to see this video, hopefully, and they comment. But some of them have an attitude that I usually call out on the table right away. So it's funny, especially in classes. We like to pick on the escalator guys, but the escalators are for some reason included. They kind of the same trade, vertical transportation. Moving walks are included though. But it's funny because
skywalks are also included?
Yeah. Yep. They're all the same.
Those got to be the bottom of the rung. Like, nobody has any respect for those guys, right? Tell me
It's the opposite. It's actually the opposite. Nobody has respect for the guys that work on the 2 or 3 stop elevators that are just, they call them hydraulic elevators. And, most of the high rise guys and the guys that do like World Trade Center and things along those lines and the escalator guys get the most respect. But man, they have the biggest chip on their shoulder. I can tell you that. And I hope they see this because it's fun making fun of them in class and stuff like that.
So let me ask you, I know that your path seems pretty linear. I mean, the way you describe it, like, almost seems super logical. I did this, I made this connection, I learned this, I built this network, I took this board position, but like, it couldn't have been that straight. Like, at some point in your path, like, where did it zig when you thought it was going to zag from being, entering the industry to actually owning your own company and own a consulting firm?
Yeah. I think the start of it was, after I left DC, I worked for a company in Philadelphia and then made a choice to go work at another company. And that company actually went under. And, at that point in time, like, yeah. And I think, so I was probably 23 at the time, 24. And I just,
were you at that point, were you mature enough to understand the magnitude of what was going on? Or you kind of still, and you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll just move on to the next thing?
Well, I owned my own house at that time. Thank you.
Right.
You forget me my mortgage. So I was 22. I think I was 22 when I bought that house, 21, 22.
Yeah.
And so when we bought the house, like, I remember coming home and just being like, and the guy who owned the business, I was the last employee that, like, he, could pay for, and he dropped me off at the house. I walked inside. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. It was not a great time in the economy. Things were not good. Went and drove far away to take a couple of interviews and stuff because nobody was hiring locally that I knew at the time. And then somebody had reached out that I had actually met before, and he found out that that company closed, and he got my information from somebody else. And that's when the light clicked. So I went, had an interview. It was a fantastic interview. They were local to Westchester, and I loved working there. It was one of those places where people were great, the owners were great. It was, it was a great time. And when I was there, like I realized that like relationships are how you make sure that you're always staying working. And
Yeah.
my mom, who's a huge relationship person, and she tries to
Hmm.
find out every person that she knows that and no matter who she meets. And
Yeah.
so kind of being in
She's a
that
big name
position.
dropper.
Oh yeah, she's a huge
Mom
name
likes
dropper
to,
right
yeah.
now. I'm like,
You know
Mom, I don't
this
know who you're
person? Do you
talking
know
about.
that person?
Yeah.
She knows
She loves
everybody,
it. And
so
I
it's,
know she does know everybody, and it kind of relates to this is like, when I was sitting there, I realized that if I need, this company may not be here forever. The company that I'm now at, like, what do I need to do to make sure that if this company goes out of business, or if I don't like what I'm doing. So started just building relationships with other people, and the company that I was at, that I ended up going to, I stayed there for about 10 years, or maybe it was like less than 10 years, but somewhere around that time, and I moved to another company with a person that I had worked at that company. So that person had started his business, and a couple years later, we still stayed in contact and worked together on some projects and things. And that's how I ended up with that position. And then it kind of just really escalated from there, and kind of moved it on to the sales side of things, which
I
is
see what you did there.
see it. So that's how most of my relationships are. I don't outside of one sales event. I've never been a person to go sit at a convention floor on the sales side, and wave you into my booth, and hope
Yo,
you're
you
gonna
did
buy
a
my.
ton of conventions, didn't you?
Bro,
So
I
I
was
used to.
walking
Oh, you
ponies
did.
for like 2 years straight. I was in trade show shape.
What kind of business was it?
It was for like digital advertising, but so
Okay.
we did every like American Dental Association, a lot of like medical spas. We did some home shows for like contractors and stuff like that, but
Okay.
it was you stand in the booth all day, and then you go out, you party all night, and then you're back in
Yeah.
the booth and
Yeah.
crushing
Yo, who do
revenue.
you think, which convention do you think is more fun, American Dental Association or the elevator convention?
Bro,
I'm gonna say the elevator convention
I
because
would
they're a bunch of degenerates.
I'm gonna tell you the number one craziest convention that you can ever go to. I don't even know if it's around anymore. The limousine industry,
Yeah.
bro.
That has to be wild.
Dude.
Yeah.
I don't know if the statute of limitations has run out from like, like there was one, I was at one in Atlantic City, and they had one in Las Vegas, and it was debauchery. Like these dudes, it's a different industry. Dentists get pretty wild. Plastic surgeons, they're like lame.
I can see that.
But I
I
could,
was
Yeah.
dude.
I was in Nashville a couple weeks ago, and I'm traveling with my CEO, Rich Whitell, and we go out. We take one of our teammates, our loan officer, one of our top producing loan officers, out to dinner. Just pick his brain, doing some content creation, things like that. And then afterwards, we're like, hey, let's go grab a drink. So we go across the street to one of the bars in Nashville, and we're just standing there. Music's playing. It's a good time. Now, picture this: there's me, and then there's Rich. Rich is like 6'2", friggin' like Adonis model, like like
They're like Schwarzenegger and DeVito and
yeah,
twin.
Danny DeVito,
Not
right?
picture.
Exactly,
All right.
exactly. So I'm standing there, and this woman keeps walking by. She walked by 3 times, and all 3 times she like kind of does one of these, looking, and I'm like, what's this lady want? You know what I mean? Like, we're just trying to have a drink and listen to some music. So she finally walks up to me and she goes, "Were you our speaker today?" And I'm like, yes, I was. So she's like, I knew it. She grabs me by the hand. Meanwhile, Rich didn't hear any of that. All he saw was like this woman grab me by the hand and take me over to the other side of the bar. So he's like, the hell? I doing wrong. So anyway, she's pointing at me. She's like, I told you it was him. I told you it was him. And there's this group of people like, oh man, that's crazy. And I'm like, dude, if I had all night, my first question was going to be, what did you like best about my speech? But instead I just said, what industry are you? And she goes, ice cream. And I'm like, yeah, no, that wasn't me. You look just like him. I'm like, sorry, I'm in the mortgage business. And we all laughed, and then I went back. But man, I feel like I could have had a lot of fun with that one if I leaned into it. But the ice cream convention, what the hell? What
Hey,
is a keynote? What do you think that keynote speech was about at an ice cream convention?
ooh, I've been to some terrible conventions with some terrible keynote speakers, but I don't think if you're giving me ice cream, I don't care what you're speaking about. I think.
Bro.
I guess that's a good point.
Yeah,
So,
that's
your company shuts down. You're trying to insulate now. That's a big. It sounds like that was a big part of your decision making going forward. But you used the word relationships a couple times. Like, for someone in industry, whether it's elevators or not, but like, what kind of advice do you have for people that really want to build a powerful network? Because it seems like it's your network that put you where you are today in your business, right?
yeah. And one of the things people on the service side of things, right? So service any type HVAC, any type of service, elevators, doesn't matter. Selling, you need to sell something, and you need to believe in it, but you need to execute on it. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They either believe in it but they can't execute on it, or they execute on it but they're just kind of in the motions and not really believing in what you do. So understanding what the client's needs are and selling it to that client. Like, the problem I always find with conventions is you're just trying to grab people that are walking by up to the convention floor. So you don't know if they need your product or not. And I was just in a room yesterday with a group that has, I don't know, 100+ buildings all across the U.S. And one of the things was, we have, like, we'll just say 5 services. And I was like, you guys are too organized. You don't need these other 3 services. You just need these two things. And, after the meeting, I leave late last night, about 9 o'clock at night. He connects me via email and text message saying, hey, you need to meet this person. He's got another 200 buildings across the US. I want you to meet him. Like, hey, Joe is super honest. He literally told us, like, we were going to buy all of his services, and he literally told us not to, just told buy these 2, and it makes more sense. And that's where the relationship kind of extended before a 24-hour period was over. And it's because I believed in what I was doing, and I believe that selling somebody something they don't need is not right. And I know we can execute on those 2 things for them, but the other 3 we wouldn't have been able to execute on because they don't actually need them.
Not
So
only
it kind of
that,
came
like
together.
you're willing to disrupt the thought pattern. You know what I mean? Like most salespeople, they don't ever want to deviate from the path of here to the path of the sale. And
Mhm.
there's a great book called The Challenger Sale that a big part of what he talks about is really, if you want to be valuable, challenge their preconceptions early, because that's where your opportunities are going to lie, and you build trust. And I remember Joe Iredell, I remember talking to you one time. That was a big part of what you were doing in your digital marketing, was like, you were not walking in saying you should buy this. You were walking in saying you should stop doing this, this, and this. And it was
Yeah.
a big part of how you developed your trust and your relationship.
But I think one of the things that Joe touched on that really is key for a lot of people that want to be successful outside of just, a lot of times someone will get a job, you'll be working for the company, and your idea is, oh, I want to do everything for this company and my job duties within the company. And that only will serve you to the eyes of, that company itself. But when you get outside and you start treating it like, I'm in the industry and I'm trying to learn everything about the industry, and it's counterintuitive to what you're taught when you work for a big corporation that has competitors. And they're like, don't talk to them because they're our competitor and they're bad. But meanwhile, if you look at it like, I'm an individual, I'm in this industry, the competitors of my company have other individuals that may not work at this company later. And, so when you start to branch out and you start to think like, what solutions does our industry offer these clients that maybe my specific company doesn't have, but somebody else may have? then your knowledge base gets greater, and you can better recommend solutions to the clients because you know where the limitations of what you have to offer are and where the other ones are picked up. So that makes you as an individual more valuable in your industry as opposed to just a salesperson selling whatever Kool-Aid your company kicked down the line to you.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
it's a big part of, Joe, you said you're not a good salesperson. And I think that's ironic that you said that because, the reality is, most salespeople don't recognize what the new age sale looks like. And what we're describing here is the new age sale. It's not the 1960s, product price negotiation sign. It's not yellow pages, right?
It's more reverse psychology. So you don't need this, but you really need this.
All right,
Yeah, it is funny.
monorail. Are they in the same industry, Joe, or we talk? Is that different?
What's
Cool.
that?
So
Monorails.
I
Oh,
monorails. So they
monorails.
are. I do know people that are in the elevator industry that currently work on monorails. But typically they're not in the same like union, or they're definitely not governed by the same codes. So even though moving walks, blew your mind that they're, still inside the elevator
I
trade.
feel like it's like
Imagining
rattling around in
depends
that.
on
I
the
can see how
grade.
mad he
Depends
is.
on the grade of the track, right? If it's over like 120 degrees, then we're talking about or nine, like anything less than 90, then we're in the same industry, right?
When we're talking
The
that, well,
grade.
but moving walks like the ones in the airport
Moving walks are
are
flat,
still
dude.
there.
Oh,
Yeah. So the code, the main elevator code governs elevator code governs elevators, moving walks, escalators, residential lift, and then incline lifts. Like if you,
Gondolas.
yeah, like gondolas or like the lifts that are go like if you have a house up on a cliff and you go
yeah,
down to the beach, needs to go down to the beach, like those little lifts like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
The stair chair lifts
Like the
inside your
incline.
house, things along those lines.
Okay.
So
What
when
about
you're in
like
the
that?
industry, like who's the stud? Like the guy that works on the. I mean, we're setting up the pecking order here. I want to know who the apex is on that
Who's
pecking
Delta
order in your
Force in the
industry.
elevator world?
Yeah. So I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna get some criticism here, but from I'm sure when we see this online, but so probably the high rise guys in New York City, Chicago, LA, those main cities, and sorry Boston and Philly, you guys just don't have big enough stuff, but those are the main ones that in my opinion are probably those guys that work on those real high speed elevators. Had a couple in my class a couple weeks ago in New Jersey, and love talking to them guys because they just have, I mean, that is just real deal, big stuff. You got to have computer knowledge. You got to have, mechanical knowledge. You have to have electrical knowledge because the littlest of interference on, on some shielded cable that goes down on the elevator or between two little things can cause a pretty big disruption. And they're fast elevators, right? They're running, 1,000, 2,000 feet per minute, which is pretty fast. So,
Help me out with that. How fast, like in comparison to a car, how fast is a high rise elevator, New York City elevator? How fast is it moving?
It's like 25.
it's like
miles an hour.
sub 20 miles an hour. Yeah,
Okay.
it's around like 20 on the big stuff. It's about 20, give or take 4 to 5 feet
It's still
or
pretty
miles per hour.
fast.
It's fast. Yeah, I mean, you figure when you ride a bike, you can pretty much ride a bike at like 10 to 12 miles an hour. So that's double the speed of a bike. Unless you got an e-bike. I have an e-bike, which I love. It goes about 20.
Imagine flying on your bike and coming to a dead stop. That's what
Yeah.
we're.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And that's the other thing is those guys keep them safe. Like not only on the emergency stop, they have it adjusted out so that, I mean, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to hurt as bad as like a complete stop. So if they make an emergency stop, there's a distance that it needs to stop greater than, but not, it needs to stop less than, but not greater than. So, they have to figure that stuff out. Those guys are the real deal. And I give them a hard time, but because I tell them the escalator guys are better, but so we'll just keep pitting them against each other. I like it.
What about airlifts at
you know-
ski resorts? Is that a totally different industry?
So it's governed by a different code, but in the state of Pennsylvania, ironically enough, the same inspectors do the ski lifts that do the elevators on the state side. The state employees do that. So shout out to them because crude industry, and I'm sure they're probably not that well maintained, at least the ones that I've seen. But they're the same in most states. They're the same governance in those different states, which is different. So amusement park rides too in some states are governed by the same people. Like in North Carolina, I believe they're governed by the same people. I think in Pennsylvania as well. So the carnies that go out there and do their thing, and it's like a
double
Six
shot
Flags or
is
something like that.
basically just like a fast elevator, right?
It really is. I mean, it honestly is. It's they use air and just shoot that thing up there, which is pretty funny because if you look at them, me geeking out on elevators when I was on the Ocean City Boardwalk last summer, I had my I guess what are they, my in-laws, nieces and nephews or something with me, and I'm like, oh, that's an elevator part, like they use that switch on that. They're like, shut up, Joe. I'm like, all right. It's fine. I guess it doesn't really matter.
Proof that we can be passionate about anything, right?
Yeah, I know. And it really does. I mean, there's so many things that people are inside of an industry that people are like super passionate about. So I sit on the board for the Elevator and Escalator Safety Foundation, which promotes basically it promotes awareness to kids riding elevators and escalators, mostly escalator things. There's a lot of like LAX just actually took on a bunch of the information and they're going to start passing it out. But a lot of kids get hurt. They get their toes cut off or whatever from wearing Crocs, playing on an escalator, playing on a moving walk, things along those lines. And this organization, Elevator and Escalator Safety Foundation, really promotes that. So it's all these industry people that help, reach out to their clients and give their clients the information. And there's a whole program behind it. There's an app, there's YouTube videos and stuff like that. It's a foundation. For the past 2 years, I got to be the chair of it. And my time is up. You get 2 years and then you're off. But for the past 2 years, I've been the chair, and it's been super fun. I got to be involved in hiring the new executive director of it. And we went from 1 employee all the way up to 3 in like less than 2 years, I think. So it's been awesome because we just been, growing that. But that's like where people geek out on certain things inside the industry. Like somebody geeks out on that. People geek out on, just things like what type of electronics should be used in elevators, and they'll campaign to all sorts of levels in code meetings and things along those lines. But people are passionate about elevators, but people are really passionate about their little pet projects inside of elevators too.
It's like a real estate agent driving around town, like I sold that house.
KJ, do you
remember? That's exactly right.
Do you remember when I forget if it was either you or Greg.
Yeah, as soon as he said that, I looked at you and you started laughing. I'm like, God, tell the story.
We were late for a flight and we were in Pittsburgh, and they have the
late for a flight because of him, for the record.
They have moving walkways like next to each other. So he's running in front of me. And I don't know why I thought this was funny, but I grabbed his bag and I just chucked it on the moving walkway going the opposite way. So he had to run all the way down, all the way back.
I like that move. That's a good move. But
I cannot get on a skywalk.
I've never seen a guy so out of breath when he got to the gate.
I must stop. But I can't get on a skywalk without thinking about that. Like, it's still to this day, it cracks me up,
I've never seen that move. I've been around a lot. I travel almost every week, and I've never seen anyone do that to their buddy, but I can tell you I'm going to do that.
To a stranger in front of you.
Especially like Charlotte or something with the long escalators that go like forever or what feel like forever.
I was in Atlanta this weekend, and there was an escalator. I swear to God, it was like, remember Tom and Jerry when he died? He was taking the escalator to heaven. It was just like miles long. This escalator. Yeah. I'm like, holy shit! This is a very long escalator, man.
There's some big ones there. In the new American Airlines lounge, or not new, but they redid it in the so it has like the flagship lounge and the regular lounge. The escalators there are like really long, like almost uncomfortable to like stand at the top of and look down and say, I gotta go down that thing. Next time you're there, look at that. It's like they're uncomfortable to look at.
This is in Philly?
Yeah, in Philly, to go to the American Airlines lounge and in Terminal A.
Okay. Before we get back to Two Truths and a Lie, one other question for you. I want you to kind of talk and share. I want you to, go from being an employee to starting your own company. How much uncertainty, how much fear existed in that transition? Or for you, was it like so natural having the connections, having everybody lined up? Was it the guaranteed business from one particular customer that was like, look, if I only have this business, I can survive. Like, what was that transition like? And what were some of the hard decisions you had to work through?
So, kind of back to the thing I said before, I was kind of blessed with a bunch of relationships and some favors getting returned. And I was one of the reasons why I was able to make the transition is I got to essentially work for a business. I was not their employee. I was a subcontractor, but worked for one business. Did a bunch of government work, and they were really like an elevator contractor, but they did other building services. And they were just like they wanted my time and attention. So they were like, well, you just tell us what it needs to make, and we'll tell you how much work we can give you to, for you to make that in the first, year or so. So I was really blessed with kind of an opportunity to like not have to take a big dip, in pay or a lot of uncertainty. But I will tell you, like day one, was fun. Day two, like the phone wasn't ringing as much as I was used to, and the uncertainty level kind of came up, because you always have like the corporate side calling you, and then you have your employees calling you, and you have your customers calling you when you're at a company. And when I no longer had the employees and the actual like company calling me to do things, and so it was really like my phone normally nonstop rings, emails just going all the time. And day one, it was like, oh boy. And by day five, after a few people had found out, it was like, okay, well now now it's gonna get going. And I think we're on month 11 here. Yeah, we're on month 11, and I'm pretty sure Lori's gonna kill me with how much work we've been taking on. So, because I told her this was gonna be great. I only got to work for this one company and do some other things around on the side. And yeah, no, it took off, and it's been awesome, in the past. But it was scary even knowing that I had that one client, because I'm like, well, the client was actually up for sale. So I was like, well, what happens if they don't? They said they had about a year, 6 months to a year. I'm like, well, what happens if they sell in 6 days? Right? I mean, as soon as you go on the market, but they held me out for a while, and I helped them out, obviously. And it was a really cool experience. Got to learn a lot about mergers and acquisitions, more than I knew. On elevator side is very crude and old school and stuff. A lot of small business owners on that side. This was big corporate stuff, selling to another big corporate agency. So it was really cool to understand and see how professional and how much diligence was done on that side. So I got to learn something that I would have never had an education on, other than we used to do small acquisitions at our company, but this was the real deal. I mean, they spent $4 million just on diligence on the owner side, and on the seller side. On the buyer side, they spent like $10 million on diligence. So it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it was an awesome experience. I would never get to probably see that again in my life, but it was really cool, and I got to learn a lot of things that I never would have learned there. But again, it was a relationship thing that they wanted me and only me, and that was fine. And now here we are, and hopefully in whatever next venture they start after their sales complete now. So after their next, so they'll start another venture and include me on that one too.
That's awesome, man. Well, congrats on what looks it's been 20 some years. Feels like it was a lot quicker than that, because time
Yeah.
moves fast. But just I know I know it's been a cool run for you. So all right, let's get back to our two truths and a lie. I think I wrote them down. So Joe, you ready? Do you remember what they are? Do you want to run through them? I'll run through them.
Okay,
No, you
I
run
got-
through it.
I remember what
Number
they are.
one, you were a firefighter. I think you said 8 or 9 years. I wrote down 8 to 9. You met your wife, Lori, racing cars. And number 3, you had 2 aces in one 18-hole round. Joe, which one of those is the lie?
So feel like if you had 2 holes in one round, that would like make the news, unless it was like mini golf or executive, like something, putt, like one of those deals. So like that actually could be true. His whole history didn't mention one thing about fires or any of that. So I'm gonna have to go with, I don't believe that you were a firefighter for 8 years.
I'm
I
going to
think
say
good call.
I know Joe a little better. So I'm gonna say it's the two aces. I might believe you had one. No damn way you had two, man. No way. So which one was it?
Yeah, it's the golf one. I'm a terrible golfer. I play a lot, but I'm a terrible golfer. So, Joe, I was a volunteer firefighter. Started when I was like 15 or 16
Yep.
at the local firehouse. It was Ken. It was the one right down the street from my mom's old office on Route One.
Yep.
And it was about a mile away from the house I grew up in. And it was some high school, grade school buddies were members, and they were a little older than me, and they told me to join. And had a fun run there. Still, stay in contact with a lot of the guys from there. Actually ran into one at the airport the other day that I hadn't seen in like 10 plus years. We all kind of moved away, but it was a super fun experience. Learned a ton, learned a lot of work ethics there with some very valuable people. And it was a wide range of white collar workers and blue collar workers at that firehouse that we got to, first time I ever,
It was
used a cutting
volunteer,
torch was
right?
there. Yeah, it was all volunteer. Yep.
What's the
Yeah.
biggest fire you ever fought?
Glen Mills Boys School, one of the main building in the back burnt down, and it took. We basically fought the fire for 24 hours,
Wow.
and then came back like 3 times the next day because it kept like relighting and things along those lines. It was pretty impressive. There was fire companies from like, I think like Colwyn came, or one of the ones up on the other side of Delco came down 476, and they dropped their whole supply line down 476. And so that fire in Glen Mills shut down 476 for like 2 hours because they had to clean the hose up. It was like it's just this crazy day of events, but it was pretty cool. It was a obviously, unfortunately, that happened, but it was a really neat experience on those fires and other fires. A lot of car accidents. We had a ton of car accidents because the 202 and Route One was in our coverage area.
Now, you were in a
So it
bad
was
car accident, were you?
when I was like 16. Yeah, I was in a
Yeah.
bad car accident. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah. So,
remember your
and
mom
they
telling
actually
that story.
came. I was a member there, and it was in that district, and it was. I was in some pain, and the other person was in some pain, and those guys had us laughing, and telling me to shut the hell up. Like it was just one of those things where it was a bad experience, but a lot of people came together to make it, okay, and get through it all.
Crazy.
We
So
we
tell
were
me
around
about
that area, the 202 and Route 1. We spent a lot of time around there, KJ.
yeah. Chad's Ford.
Yeah.
That's where our Yellow Book headquarters was. And Joe, didn't you live? You didn't Darlington Woods, right? Didn't you live over there
Yeah,
in
Glen
Darlington Woods?
Mills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you live in Darlington Woods. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
So you met Lori racing cars.
Yeah, so Lori and I actually met. We met through a group of friends racing. I'd been racing forever, and we usually drag raced, straight line stuff. But we met through a group of friends, and probably like I'm gonna say it was like 8 years before 5 to 8 years. Probably shouldn't say that out loud that I don't know that, but we met, and then yeah, and then we started dating, and it was like I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, oh, the girl, I race cars, and now I have somebody that's in my hobby, and we like the same things, and we had a lot of other interests, same interests as well, like the beach, going to the shore, and all that stuff. But so I was like, this is gonna be awesome. Well, once we got married, even before that, and I realized that I had to pay for now 2 race cars. I was like, this was the worst decision that I ever had. And the funny part is so everyone says she only dated me because I had a fast car, and I had a pretty fast car at the time, and so I actually sold it right right after we got engaged, or right before we got engaged, and then I bought like another fast car, and I sold it through probably I think it was the day we were leaving to go like stay at the hotel we were staying at for the whole wedding thing, and I sold it that morning before we left. And she didn't even know, this tow truck showed up and this guy gives me money and takes and she's like, what do you, I was like, I sold my car. And she's like, what? And so he was telling everybody she wasn't going to marry me because I didn't have a fast car anymore. But it was funny. We just kind of we both kind of took more to the beach versus going to the shore. versus racing, and because it's a lot funner to be like broken down on a boat in the middle of the water than broken down at a on the racetrack at a hot blacktop. So
Dude, what would your
we
buddies think, all your racing buddies, when you got so excited to tell us you had an e-bike and you loved it?
I'm so excited to tell you that. Yeah, they definitely make fun of me a lot. There's, obviously everybody's got their group chats. There's one Instagram group chat where they're just like, Joe, you have done the biggest sellout. And I'm like, I just, I don't like racing cars anymore. It just takes up too much of your time. And there's not a lot of places to do it. But I go out on the boat. We go out on the boat every weekend. I was like, so we bought Lori wanted wave runners. So we got 2 wave runners. And then, I said, like, that's fine. Like, I wanted like these very just moderate wave runners. And so we got these wave runners, and then I said, like, I don't want any fast ones or anything along those lines. So we ended up with a fast wave runner because that's what she wanted. And so now we have one fast wave runner too that I always have to work on because, as soon as you start messing with things, that's why I like my e-bike, because I just go do my 15 miles an hour down the road and go get some donuts in the morning at the shore and stuff like that. But they would probably be pretty disappointed. They're probably going to make fun of me a lot because I'm sure they're all going to see this on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and definitely make fun of me.
And I got to imagine that, in a male-dominated sport, Lori shows up. She was probably, be honest, she was probably a trophy, right? Because I'm sure, right? I'm sure it was like you weren't the only one whose attention she had. Right?
Fast and Furious. Yeah. I know how this goes down.
Yep, exactly right. And the funny part is two parts of that story. She thought I was fast. She thought my car was fast, and she thought I was funny. And she no longer finds me funny at all, I can tell you that. And I don't have a fast car, so I'm not really sure what I bring to the table. But we used to put her in my car and race guys. And one of my buddies, Cody, his car, his license plate was called Ego Checker, kind of shortened, but it was Ego Checker. And we put her in my car, and they raced at the track. They drag raced, and she beat him by a bumper. And he was so mad. He was like, I can't believe that you guys. And so he's like, well, let's race again. And I was like, well, she's just gonna beat you by a bumper again. I was like, we're always just gonna beat you by a bumper. We're just gonna be a little bit ahead of you each time, and we're just gonna turn it up every time. But he was so mad that he got beat by that. I was like, you need to give me your license plate now, and we need to put that up on my garage wall.
Yeah,
but she used to hustle girls. Yeah, it was fun. And then we didn't, we kind of it's hard. Like, you got to choose your time, and now we have a 2-year-old and stuff, so we don't get to do it a lot. A lot of my friends get to do it, so I still get to watch and root them on, because it's awesome seeing like some of them that were kind of just like street racers back in the day. Now they have a big time race setup, and they're really doing awesome in the series, and they have some sponsors and things along those lines. So it's pretty cool to see how they kind of progress throughout the years, and how successful they've been. Same with most of them in business. Like, a lot of guys that built my car, helped me build my cars and stuff. Like, their businesses are booming now, and it's awesome. And like, I love seeing that. It's just like, what I would have never thought was, going to be now. I mean, I couldn't imagine, I'd never imagined that when we were younger, just like working on cars in people's garages or their small shops. And now they have these huge shops with big trailers and campers pulling their race cars. It's pretty awesome. So I love seeing that.
Well, I know Joe fell in love with Laura because she was a better salesperson than him. And very, very similar circumstances.
You closed the ultimate deal, bro. Of course.
That's right. There you go.
Fantastic. Well, listen, dude, I thank you very, very much. By the way, did you ever even have one hole-in-one?
No, I'm a terrible golfer. I'm great at, I bring the best cigars, so people just invite me golfing.
You could have said one and got away with it. There's no goddamn way. Yeah, true. Well, we gotta get out on the course one of these days.
I'm in. Yeah, we have. I always get like outings and stuff. So let's do some stuff. I love going out there, and especially down the shore, because we can meet in the middle somewhere when you're down.
I like it. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your stories with us, and I look forward to maybe having you back. And between now and then, maybe we'll get together and get some golf in. Joe, I don't know if I'll see you in Vegas.
Come on, brother.
We'll see.
Get out.
We'll
I want to go to that. I heard that. You guys couldn't hear me, but I heard that. So I'll be excited to see you. Appreciate you guys having me on here. Looking forward to the next time, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Cool. Sounds good.
Bye, guys.
You good?